welcome to our edition of Ludlow Life. And Shaun Ward, who's the director of music, have I got that right?
Yeah, that's right. Organist and director of music. Yep.
Well, as part of our profile, I'd like you to tell us a bit about yourself and your background and what brought you to Ludlow.
Okay, so I've been singing in church choirs when I started singing when I was 7, and then it was a natural progression to take up the organ. I'm from Bristol originally, and then I met my husband 21 years ago. He's organist of Hereford Cathedral, so he was appointed 20 years ago, and we moved here basically to the Welsh Marches. And then eventually the job came up at Ludlow and it was too irresistible. So I've been organist here. I'm the 52nd organist since 1492. And I've been here just over 11 years, 11 and a half years, nearly 12 years this coming Easter.
Okay, fantastic. Now, I think there's something to do with you and gin as well. What's that?
Yeah, so
your background?
I tend to have a kind of creative streak. I suppose it's the musical bit, but I come from a family of people who've always been entrepreneurial. I enjoy cooking, and then less than kind of whenever it was, 10 months ago, I had the idea that I would try and work out how to make gin, and I wanted to make it properly, from scratch, with no artificial colours or preservatives, and link it in with where I'm working in Ludlow.
Oh, it's fantastic. So, can you give us a bit more, build a picture of how these passions kind of tie together? Is it conservation in historic
Yeah, I also do
buildings
conservation.
as well?
Yeah, conservation of historic buildings. So I moved to Hereford, where Peter is organist at the cathedral. There isn't too much room for two professional organists, so actually 3, because he has a colleague. So I played at the cathedral for a bit, and then I needed to. It was quite clear that I would need to find a secondary career, and I come from a family of stonemasons, so I got offered a job with a friend working in an architect's practice, and so I retrained, and that would be 15 years ago. I've always had a love of historic buildings since I was a little boy, I guess because I sang in churches, and so I've always done a lot of church architectural work. And then when I came to Ludlow in 2007, it was a pretty natural progression to be looking after the building here as well.
Okay. Well, it sounds fantastic. So, let's see. So that's going to take you into this next question, which is to finish the sentence for us. So, as a music director for St. Lawrence's Church, one of the most satisfactory things I have accomplished is...
Oh, it's a difficult one too. I've been thinking about this over the last couple of days. It is difficult. There's a wonderful thing about music. It's very different from art because it's only there for a brief second, and you can't touch it, and it's only experienced by individuals. But the one thing I love about what I do is the legacy that we leave to children and young people who work with us in the choir here. I mean, only this week I've been in touch with 3 ex-choristers. One's just started at Oxford, one's gone into the army. They just send me text message saying this is what I'm doing, and this is a problem I have at the moment, and what do you think? And that's great. It's nice to know that people had influence on me 30 years ago, and I now do the same.
Right. So is it a bit of the community is very much involved in through the choir?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole thing about working in a place like this is community, and it's not about whether you believe or have a faith. It's just about bringing people together and a sense of community. Yeah.
Which is what essentially music.
Indeed.
Would do. All right. Now let's move on to the next question, and I think you may be perfectly placed for this. Is to tell us something nobody knows about music in Ludlow. This is in 2 parts, by the way. And given your talent for conservation in historic buildings, Ludlow's architectural history. So you've got two
things. Well, Ludlow allegedly has the most historic buildings in kind of per square foot, as it were. It has 500, over 500 listed buildings. I find it really strange that Ludlow is not a World Heritage a certain site. I don't understand this, because if we were in Italy and we had so many buildings, there would be a real sense of pride. for some reason it's just not recognised here, and people in Ludlow don't realise the heritage that's around them. We sat in this incredible building here. I can see with my eyes just beyond the camera one of England's largest collections of late medieval glass, and yet most people in the street in Ludlow have no recognition of that. You know, the 5 wooden screens behind us all survived both the Reformation and the Civil War. Most cathedrals and big churches of this size don't have those sorts of artefacts. So I think it's fascinating, that kind of sense of this fortified town on a hilltop. And in many ways, that's why it survived, because it's kind of unknown. Musically, the choir was very linked, the choir of St Lawrence's was very linked to all of this, because once the building was built in 1492, then the choir and an organist was founded and paid for by the Palmers Guild. And there is a historic collection of music, which the part books are still extant. They're in the Shrewsbury archives, and scholars still read them. So, you know, I get students who go off to Oxford or Cambridge, and they write to me halfway through the first term saying, "Oh, we're talking about the Ludlow manuscript." So it's another thing that nobody in Ludlow knows about. So that gives you a little insight.
Yeah, no, that's excellent, actually. I didn't know that, so I've learned something today. So this leads on to something a little bit offbeat, which is, what is your favourite haunt in Ludlow and why?
What is my favourite haunt in Ludlow? I think it depends on what time of the day and what drink I'm consuming. So it depends whether it's tea or coffee.
Midday,
yeah, midday, mid-morning, which mood I'm in. Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I'm a keen supporter of the independents in Ludlow, so I love having my tea and cake in Carvel's. I love my coffee and my chocolate brownies, gluten-free brownies from Harp Lane. But, you know, I mean, most people will see me eating supper or, you know, having a drink in the Church Inn. I think the Church Inn has a really good atmosphere. It's neither a gastropub nor, you know, a kind of slummy pub, and does the best of both worlds. The food's excellent. So yeah, it just depends. Times and seasons, different times of year. I might be outside in the beer garden here at St Lawrence's.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, and you said that your partner is in Hereford, so
Yep.
you've got the kind of to explore the marches a bit. So
Yeah.
maybe you can tell us of them. What about a favourite getaway? That's
Favourite getaway?
Reasonable driving distance of Ludlow.
Yeah, we have lots of kind of little places that we tend to escape to. Skenfrith has been one, which is just south of Hereford. The Bell at Skenfrith is a great place to go for a meal, accommodation, night over. Last week we tend to try and do this mid-term, so between half terms we try and go for one night away, just a survival tactic. So we went to the Ebrington Arms, which is just past Chipping Campden, about an hour and a quarter away. The Cotswolds seem so far away, they're not really. So that's you know, it's those we tend to try and find a little pub that we can escape to. Sometimes it's Fishmore Hall on a Sunday night for Sunday lunch. That's quite a good one. Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. Well, for your final question, you'll be relieved to know. Tell us about something that's coming up. You know, that you're involved in, that you'd like to other people to know.
So we're promoting this weekend the Alewife Beer Fest. A number of my colleagues across the country are promoting beer festivals in churches. There are huge versions in Hull and Grantham. The Grantham one this week had 3,000 people. So we've got big plans for St Lawrence's. Next year, the pews will come out of the nave and be replaced by chairs, which makes this the biggest space in Ludlow for people to use. Very dramatic, returning it back to its medieval sense. And so this weekend we're dipping our toe in the water and having a beer festival. We've got 20 beers, 5 ciders and Ludlow gin. Hot food on evenings, cold food in the daytimes, live entertainment both nights, and there's a family afternoon, 12 to 4 on Saturday with family activities in a Bounty Castle. So there's lots going on, big new activity for us.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, we look forward to it. And do you think you can give us, because it was so beautiful, and
Another little bit?
Another little bit.
Another little bit. I'll give you some.
Conclude.
Okay.
Thank you so much.